Hello, hello. Watashi wa MISA, and today I'm going to be talking about how I am married to corpse husband with marijuana in mind. Yes. So essentially, it's a very long story, but this teddy bear has a lot to do with it. And same with these glasses, this book, this incense burner, this marijuana, this book, this tarot cards, Mickey Mouse, this pocket knife, cookies, bong. So essentially, all these things have something to do with it because they're my belongings. This particular pocket knife right here was stolen by a homeless man named Jimmy. Jimmy raped me one day. When he raped me, MISA, I had my right eyeball hanging out of my head. The only person who saved me was my husband. And the story of Death Note is a very, very important one that delves into the psychology of my husband. It's what caused us to create these books. These very, very sad books. You see, these glasses are broken. And really, they're meant to be like that. When we found them, they were broken. But they were my glasses. And I wore them with my husband. You see, we grew up very, very poor. Things like these, hard to come by. Things like this, people thought the abundance was fake. Things like these, we only dreamed of having. And things like this, we stared at in storefront windows. So when it comes to this very, very sad book, what I want to talk about is the ways we have tried to survive. This book contains human traffickers, rapists, and murderers who we expose in the Corpse Husband Project. You see, a big part of the psychology of Corpse Husband is that he has two names, and there is an anime created about these two identities. You see, he is both L and Kira. The story of Death Note was how when we began making these books, my husband felt, well, rather horrible. He sat here and he said to himself, I'm a murderer, MISA. You should get away from me. Watashi wa Kira. Yamete onegaishimasu. When I tried to kiss him, yamete onegaishimasu. And when I turned back to L, he was desperate for my affections and gratification. You see, he was a detective, analyzing his own mind. I looked right into his eyes and I said, Doshite? Onegaishimasu. Doshite? And where are you going? Please don't leave me. This is where my mind began to break. You see, as MISA, I need my husband, or my mind breaks. And honestly, marijuana, even though it does help, doesn't help so much that I'm sane. So, essentially, I need both Kira and El to remember he's one person. And I need this man to remember he's not a bad man for making these books. These books saved our lives. Because the old man Jimmy, when he raped me, he took pictures of me. I was very, very, very young. I was just a baby when he started raping me. You would be very delicate with a baby. And one of the things that they did is they used to delicately abuse, is the way they'd phrase it. And so what had happened was, while they were oh so delicately abusing me, I was getting used to the psychology of being raped. I had been so exposed to the psychology, I didn't know what else to do other than just to accept the abuse. And so eventually one day I'm an infant child and they're taking pictures of me. I remember the flash photography startled and scared me. And when it happened, they sold the pictures, Joey Jorgensen and Jimmy, for 50 cents on the streets. He investigated this, or I should say Kira. And when he did, he saved me. And I remember I couldn't say anything. I couldn't speak English, and he's like, "How about Japanese?" And I turned to him and I said, "Doshite? Doshite?" And at that time I was so startled because I had forgotten English and Japanese in that moment. And he said, "How do you know Japanese?" And I said, "I'm a spiritual woman." And we turned back to the tarot cards and what the tarot cards have to say in a random way. Let's see. They say these people abused my body horrifically. And when they did, I stopped feeling maternal. The angel within me didn't know how to raise her kids. And I was not a very good night because I laid there and slept. Everything was upside down. L or Kira, corpse husband, blamed himself for years. Even though he was my savior and my only reason for being alive, he blamed himself. And this caused intense misery. He always saw himself like Kira, like a murderer, Kira, a killer. And he would never say anything when you complimented him. One of the most important connections that I can make here is that Kira, corpse husband, is Murdoch Nichols. And one of the things that we talk about is that Murdoch Nichols is God. And if you know the story of Kingdom Hearts, you know that this man is Sora. And one of the things that always really struck me as a person was the way this book got in his head. This very book, the way it looks, all the way down to the glitter and drawings upon it, was plagiarized by Björk Guimasatter at one time. This woman was a murderer, serial killer, who when she saw these glasses, she put them on and raped my husband and tried to dement him into believing these were really hers and that she spiritually spoke to him. All this did was make him investigate spirituality further and more psychologies within it. And when you look at this psychology book, one of the things that really broke my heart was the way that as a person, my husband was not allowed to live honestly. He was constantly told he was a bad man. And so every time I came over to talk to him, he said nothing. Absolutely nothing. And I was so startled by this because I'd look at his life and he was partying. And I could say nothing but cruelties. I turned to drugs, but I couldn't go further than jabs. So it means I couldn't do methamphetamine and things like that, which helped him, I believe. And he says it did. But it doesn't change. My king says nothing, then stays away. And all I could think was, Doshte. All of our family and friends were turned upside down by this psychology. My husband, upon creating these death notes, was obsessed with killing the very people who had hurt us so horribly. I turned to eating because he said he liked fat women at one time. I believe this is his way of trying to stop me from being a killer because I am known in society as Noodle. And if you know me, you know I'm the greatest trained assassin. And I made Jimmy cut off his own toes.